why do you think renewables are important for like the UK as a whole?
They're the best route we have to decarbonize, while also um, bringing jobs and employment into parts of the economy that often lose out,
Mm-hmm.
and helping bits of the economy which are difficult to fix, to get with the plan and decarbonize. So what I mean by that is, so for example, where I grew up in on South Humber, me and most of my peer group, the kids who went off to university, hardly any of my friends went home because there weren't many graduate jobs. So you get that shift to the big population centres. I ended up in Glasgow, but lots of people go to London or Manchester. You get those sorts of shifts. So people stay where they went to college.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a sort of a pull of home because there weren't things to do there. But whereas now you see Siemens Gamesa Hall, you see Ørsted and so many others with strong big bases in Grimsby. There's excitement in the area. So it does that. It gives people hope. It gives people jobs. It gives field employment and things that people can get involved in that they care about. And I'm struck when I do talks. I used to do a lot with RenewableUK about the values that people have. People want jobs which are meaningful, and they also want jobs which are, they can be sure are stable. So offshore wind does that. It gives people heart, and it also decarbonizes. And it gives us routes out of some intractable problems, such as, well, the UK relies on oil and gas to underpin its economy. It's a major component of the economy. Well, yes, it is, but we can now find a way to use those skills to do other things like hydrogen or floating offshore wind, or rather than saying we don't need you anymore, we can say we need you, but we need you to do things differently. Because I enjoy how it's offshore wind is now oil and gas is talked about not as a fuel, or it won't be a fuel, it will be a feedstock in making things we need. So its role in our economy will change, and underpinning our economy in the future will be renewables and offshore wind. And that's great to be part of it, and it's great to be right if you've worked in something for so many years too.
Because I must have, with one of the things that I would almost, in oil and gas's defense, is that companies and countries look to do whatever the economic engine is at the time. And from the 70s up until now, but actually for another 40 odd years, oil and gas will always play an important part of it. But what's quite interesting is the transferable skills from oil and gas into renewables and vice versa. And for me, almost touching on the reason why offshore wind is really important for the UK, and almost this came back to, people always used to complain about subsidies. And why does one technology get a government subsidy, why other one doesn't? And one of the big crucial parts always was to invest in technologies to make them more commercial, so therefore reduce the unit cost so that the country has more options to pick from as a more diverse source of energy than otherwise. But I remember 10 years ago, there was a lot of opposition when people would say, you'll never get the cost down in offshore wind. And from memory, I think it was £157 per kilowatt hour, which was the strike price at the time. And now, is it 50-ish? It depends on the latest projects, but the costs have genuinely come down.
They're underneath £40. Yeah. So it's reduced by 3 times. And you're right about oil and gas. I mean, I'm doing a lot of work with companies now, and West is a part of that, but I'm doing it separately, one-on-one with companies in oil and gas who are looking at how they move into offshore. And one of the things I'm really enjoying is these companies with vast expertise. They've got products, services, and they explain what they do. Wow, that's cool. There's deep sea robotics, remote monitoring, data. They're cutting edge companies who very specialized in oil and gas and have worked in that way for years. Now realizing that they need to diversify. They need to be part of this shift. But equally, they say, do you think we'll be okay? Should we rebrand ourselves? Should we, become a separate renewable division? And I tend to say no, because you can explain your deep expertise, and you can explain what you can offer this transition. You
I'm
can
glad you
help
said
to
that,
be part of that acceleration.
because I give the same advice. And it's, it's because I didn't know what you were going to say there. I probably would have kept quiet if you said something different. But the other thing as well, which is quite interesting, is that the UK is the world leader in offshore wind. And part of that reason is that we're an island, but actually we're a very well located island that happens to have 40% of Europe's wind resource within its waters. And one of the things that's really important why there's a lot of investment going into the sector, and we'll jump onto what we're doing in a second. But actually, it's the fact that learning our craft now on things like floating offshore wind, which is needed for kind of deeper water projects, because the UK is leading the world in it. If a company from North Shields or the guys we spoke to this morning from London really learn the craft, learn the technology, learn the skills, we can sell this everyone in the world as the leader in that particular technology. So actually, like the program that we're working on, and we'll jump onto West now, and I'll let you do the honors. But it's almost where if you're willing to try to diversify new skills into new sectors, the global growth in offshore wind is so huge, especially in the US and China, the Far East, that it's great to find your feet, learn the technology, and there is a massive growing market out there to really kind of sell into, because that's the big thing that almost historically people would always champion renewables for the carbon reasons, which I agree with, I don't disagree with. But on a purely business level, just for the business opportunity, that is more than worth chasing. And I think now, because it's proven and these projects get bigger and bigger and bigger, I think it's worth talking about.